I like being
I
in
can
control.
tell.
So I just can't. I can't. This term, yangulala, but you know, so.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for joining us. If it is your first time here, andiswa.mojapelo, and on this channel we chat about all things related to money and adulting in general. So today we are joined by the beautiful Lindo from All Things Lindo. If you haven't seen or if you don't know who Lindo is, it means you're not commenting on my videos.
Because you see my comments when you're busy commenting there.
Literally, YouTube has put a heart or something like that purple thing where it shows you that someone is like, it shows you that someone is like, has had the highest or one of the highest comments or something. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
So you've got like a little purple heart.
Excuse me. I didn't know that.
Yes. Okay, guys, Lindo, please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Lindo. I also have a YouTube channel called All Things Lindo where we talk about this, that and everything in between. Nothing is off limits.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have Lindo here. We shot a video for her channel, so please, I'm going to link her channel in the description box. I love her channel, which means you love her channel. So go ahead and subscribe, watch some of her content. You'll definitely enjoy it. So today, guys, we are talking about being a submissive wife in a modern society.
So hectic.
Or not being a submissive wife in a modern society, whichever way that you think about it or you view it. And a bit of context, very short context before we dive straight in. So I've just been watching a few video clips online and on social media, and it seems like this submission thing is being questioned as things evolve. So obviously you guys know that our grandmothers had a way different lifestyle and environment than we do now. They stayed at home, they looked after the kids, granddad went to work in the mines and all of that, and maybe some of our parents. Now more girls are getting MBAs, climbing that corporate ladder and killing it. And one raises the question of like, should things change completely everywhere, or has that changed but everything else should stay the same? So I just wanted to have a conversation about this and just unpack it from your experience, my experience. What do you think submission is? What are your thoughts on it? Were you taught about it? Did you pick it up along the way? That type of thing. So it sounds hectic, but it's going to be chilled.
It's very hectic.
It's going to be chilled. Okay, cool. So first question then.
Okay.
Before we dive in, was marriage a part of your goals?
No.
To begin with?
No, that's not a very good question. So marriage was never part of my goals, to be very honest. My mom and my dad were never married. So I didn't grow up in a two-parent household. It was just my mom and my sister. So we grew up like that. Obviously, there'd always be the odd cousin or whoever who stays with us. But for the most part, it was just the two of us, the siblings, me and my sister and my mom, right? And because my parents were never married, marriage was never a thing for me. It's not something I thought about. It's not something I put much thought into. I knew it existed, and I'd see kids from like homes where there's a mom and a dad, but it was never something that I was inquisitive about or questioned or aspired to, So the only way where I would say marriage became a factor in my thinking was when growing up. Obviously holidays you go visit Kagogo. Now holidays you go to my dad's gran. The next holidays you go to my mom's gran. That back and forth I didn't like. And I think growing up I just thought, you know what, if ever I do have kids, then I'd like to have them in the context of a married home to just avoid the back and forth. So the aspiration was never so much about being a wife or having a ring or whatever, but it was just to avoid that back and forth that I didn't like growing up, and I wanted to spare my son or my kids of that. So that's where the marriage aspiration was possibly in my mind, but it was never as intense as I want to be married by age ban, because you know how they always say girls plan out their weddings from really young.
With their dresses on the board and everything.
Never that girl. If anything, I was a tomboy, so hey.
Do you know if your husband had marriage as a goal?
Definitely. My husband did. My husband grew up in a married household, so he aspired to be married. And I think when we got together, he brought up the marriage conversations very early on. And I was still very like naive in the clouds about it, because I was just like, oh, okay, marriage, okay. Then you start wiring your mind towards thinking like that. But it was never something that I walked into the equation thinking about. And I don't want to get misunderstood. I never dated for the sake of dating. I dated like a committed relationship, but it was never a thing whether it ended in marriage or not. So it wasn't a factor, like it wasn't something I thought of all the time.
It's so interesting because when I met my husband and we started dating, marriage was a goal for him. And we had a conversation on one random day, and we were just talking about our goals and what we want to do in the next 5 years. And he's like, but why aren't you mentioning getting married? And I was like, because it's not on my goals. And he's like, but why wouldn't it? Don't you want to marry me? Or is it? And I was like, no. It's not like that. It's just that I've never thought about marriage in that way. Exactly like you. I've never really said, this is going to be my wedding dress and this is going to be the special day and all of that stuff. Whereas for him, it was something that he wanted to do. And like you, he grew up in that structure.
So another thing, I think I'm a Christian, so I'll reference Christianity in certain instances, and I'm not fully following the rules of the Bible.
Thank you for your honesty. We appreciate
so in certain instances, there's guiding principles that you'll adopt from the word, and I think one of them would be, he who finds a wife
finds a good thing.
Yes. So you don't go around looking to be found. That's why I think for us, it's just something where it was, oh, okay, there's marriage, and if it happens, great, I'll be open to it. But it's not a thing that you wake up now, you're fasting about, or like that. Like, it wasn't like that.
Like actively seeking.
Like it wasn't something, that's the word. It wasn't something I was actively seeking. I think I just felt, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Especially also because I saw my mom wasn't married, and she lived a very full life. So I never felt like if you're not married, then there's something missing. So that's why it was never like.
Now that you mention it, I've never thought that having a single mother was maybe the reason why I've never thought of marriage as a goal. I've never thought about it that way. That I saw her kill it. I saw her do the things that needed to be done without a spouse. And I wonder if that played a part in me not really focusing on having a partner in order to subconsciously, right? Without me picking it up. Okay, cool. And then let's get into submission. Firstly, like what are your thoughts on what submission is? Or rather, let me say, what is submission to you from as a wife?
Sure. I won't lie, I've never thought about this concept for myself. I consume a lot of information and content around it, but I've never sat down and said, okay, I've heard what this one says, I've heard what this one says, and this is what it is for me. Again, if you have biblical principles that guide the kind of life that you live, obviously there'll be certain things that you take from that. And I think the reason I've never put my own stance on this thing is because of how negative a connotation it's received. I think now people think if you're a submissive wife, you then have to be the yebo baba type of person, or you must be meek, and that's,
don't have an opinion, don't say no.
Exactly. And that's everything I'm not. So I've always shied away from actually having an opinion about submission, because I never wanted to find myself conflicted about who I am and actually what the society says a submissive wife should be. I'm not a quiet person. I have a loud voice. Like, you'll hear me, you know? Exactly. Like, I'm a very bold personality. I can be a lot, you know? So already those don't sound like the qualities of a submissive wife. So I just always thought, you know what? To spare myself the heartache, maybe I don't fit the criteria. I don't want to think about it in this instance. So to be very honest and cut it short, I've never defined it for myself. The definitions I know of are the definitions put out there by the word and the world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
However, the word, if you read that verse that speaks about submission, it says the woman will submit to the man and the man submits to the church.
Yes.
There's a verse before that, or like the verse, the line before that says, submit ye one another. Submit to one another in reverence of Christ, right? What that says is that you will submit to each other in respect of Unkulunkulu, right?
Yes.
That's the part we never hear about. It's always the woman must submit to the man.
That's picked out and highlighted.
So we are very selective with the definition and how we choose to unpack it.
As we are most things, I think.
Exactly.
When it comes to the Bible, especially.
And that's why I'm saying I don't follow it to the T, because if we had to unpack it in that sense, already we are disqualified, because we're very selective about the principles of it that we choose to live by. So that's why I've never made submission, I've never defined it for myself, because I didn't want to find myself in conflict of whether am I a good enough wife because I don't do this, I'm not meek, and there's this channel on YouTube that I watch, and this lady calls herself the modern day wife, or like modern day housemaker, something along those lines. And some of the thoughts that she puts out there, I don't agree with, but I just watch her for she pokes your mind and she challenges your thinking. Some of the things she'll speak about there, I'm just like, nah, I don't know, I don't agree with that. Like things like when you get home, the house must be clean for your husband so that when he gets there, it's a calm environment. I also want a calm environment.
We'd love a calm environment
for me
all the time when I'm at work.
So I've never.
Okay, cool. I completely agree with you. I think the term has been toyed around with a lot, and I do think that people nitpick what they would like and sort of run with that. So let's simplify it, right? If I say, for the purpose of this video, right? I'm not putting a definition out there. If I say, for the purpose of this video, submission is understanding that every household has a leader.
Yes.
And that leader is what is termed as the head.
Yeah.
And then, with the wife, I've heard neck and all of that, but I want to get this point.
I heard crown recently.
So there's a lot there. But that every household has a leader, and the leader is the head, and that is the husband in the context of a marriage.
Yeah.
Would you say you agree with that? Are you for that? Or are you of the notion that there can be two heads and two leaders, we should lead equally? So basically, simply put, is it 50-50 or is there a leader?
Okay.
In your context and your understanding.
Cool. I like the 50-50 notion. I don't believe in 50-50. I believe in 100-100.
Okay.
And there's a term that I heard being coined saying, if we say 50-50, then where's the other 50 going? If you're putting 50, I'm putting 50. Where's the other 50 that forms your 100 going? Because then you're not giving your all.
Okay.
I believe in bringing all of it, 100-100, right? Now, thinking of things literally, a human being has one head.
Yes.
It starts being far-fetched. Okay. So I can't say there'll be two heads.
Okay.
And I don't want to agree or disagree to your definition that you're putting out in the context of this video.
Yes.
I want to bring in my own analogy.
Okay.
Right? Cool. When you're driving a car, only one person can drive at a time. Right? So I believe that in a relationship, it's a partnership. Niyabambisana, right? I don't like subscribing to definitions, because a definition is then obviously you can't agree to what you like and then what you don't like.
Yeah,
right?
and then the sort of tear it apart.
Yeah, so I don't want to biblify it, for lack of a better phrase, but I also don't want to simplify it. I don't want to take away from what God meant for it, right? I believe that when there's a car, there can only be one driver at a time. And in a partnership, there will be things that you are good at, and there will be things that I am good at. And in those different instances, based on who can lead us best in this scenario, that person will drive. But when you're in the passenger seat for that scenario that the other person is better at and they are driving, if you see someone who's about to cross onto the road and maybe your partner is staring in a different direction and they're not seeing this person, will you not alert them to it? You will, because if ishayisa le moto nilimala nonke. So alert that actually there's someone who's about to cross the road is for the benefit of all of your safety. So there doesn't have to be yebo baba, only one person makes the decisions. I don't think that's what even the Bible intended. I think also when we take a look at it, even from our grandmothers, they ran the household. They ran the household. Yes, the man went to work at Goli and they brought in the money, but they took care of the kids. They made sure that the house is
which is a responsibility on its own.
A huge responsibility. A huge responsibility. So I think we try and make one position feel like it's better than another, whereas I just believe that if in an instance the car is being driven, only one person can drive at a time. Doesn't mean you don't know how to drive. It doesn't mean if I need help you can't get out of the steering wheel and then I take us further. It's a partnership, sisonke. So I'm not going to agree or disagree to the heads and all of that, but that's how I see it. It's a partnership, and there'll be one person driving at a time, and it's just a matter of why in this instance would you be driving. Like my husband works in banking. He works with home loans all the time. He works with car finance all the time. So when it comes to home loans and car finance, he's my go-to. Because in that instance, he leads in that situation. I know and I trust that he's going to give me the right advice. So in that scenario, I'm going to submit in the terms of the world to his authority because I trust his authority. So for me, that's what it is.
So so what I'm hearing from you is that, so I completely agree, and I think I've said it in another video as well when we spoke about couples and marriage, and especially the financial part, is you need to play at each other's advantages, right? So you need to leverage on what the one person is and what the one person is not, and cover that gap. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are saying that there is a joint vision.
Yes.
There isn't, in your context, one vision that. So the husband is not bringing one vision in which everybody will support. You are creating the vision that together that everybody will support.
That we will support.
Okay, cool.
That's how I see it. And that's why I say I don't want to play to the terminologies that exist out there,
because you feel like it's going to box.
It's going to box it, right? Because even that submission, like in researching this topic, and the reason I don't want to box it, the topic, the videos that I watched that spoke about it, there's this lady in I think the last video I watched where I was just like, I cutting yek, because it's not working, this research I'm doing. This lady speaks, okay, she reads the verse, and then she says, in her mind, submission is being a homemaker, right? Her being a homemaker, her making sure that the kids are taken care of, she speaks about roles.
Yes, and we're gonna get there. We're not on roles yet. So she's making roles submission.
Yes, so how she unpacked it, I was just like, I'm gonna get frustrated here if I'm gonna try fit my response to these boxes that exist. Let's leave it.
And then were you, like, obviously you're speaking about your own definition now. Did someone sit you down? I haven't even asked for what. She was already like, nobody sat her down. Did somebody sit you down when you got married?
Yeah.
From either side and say, Lindo, you are chatangok, so these are the things, from a submissive or whatever point of view that you need to then, fit into as a wife as you go into this new role, whether it was from your husband's side or from your side. Did anybody sit down and say, Lindo, this is the area that you are entering now, and in this area, this is what we do and what we don't do?
No.
Is it?
Yeah.
Same.
Nobody set me down, and I'm going to blame me because
I think I got my blame because I actually said it.
Not even, yes. I think, again, my home or my family. So I guess who would have had that conversation with me? I never got sat down and told Guti, umfazi wenzani. I remember, like, there were ladies that came from my mom's church. Actually, it wasn't people from church. It was people, like my mom's a teacher, right? So some of her colleagues came, and I think it was the Thursday. So there was prayer like every day that week about just for everything to go smooth and just for the families to and all that. And then so after the prayer, most there'd be like conversations, and there'd be ladies speaking and whatnot. There was one lady who said like the whole but it was never from a point of this is the journey, this is the role I never had that. I don't want to lie.
You didn't even have the part.
That was said
Okay.
in that scenario.
That it's not going to be easy.
Yes, and I think the only thing close to that maybe that was there was the welcome to Mama Land speech at the wedding.
Yes.
But obviously that doesn't go into detail.
Yes.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
So to that depth of like, this is what a wife must do, this is the role of a woman, I never had that. The closest thing to that was marital counseling. But our pastor, when he counseled us, he wasn't focused on the, you must wash dishes, you must do this, you know. It was more from a place of, I've been married for this many years and these are the challenges that you will face. Obviously, he referenced biblical principles and all that, but he was never like, kuzo banje, and this is what you must do, this is what you must do, no. So I never had those conversations. I've never even thought about it actually. Where they tell you, emshadweni kunjena, as a wife, this is what's expected of you. No.
Yes. No. I've heard that we are hlaliswa phansi.
No, I've actually heard
yeah,
that
even
too.
when you, especially on your husband's side, like when they welcome you, yes, Uti, this is the family you are joining, this is the hierarchy of the family, this is how we do things, this is what females do and what males do when we have like imcimbi and whatever else. So I have heard that is what happens, and I think that maybe even the submission topic of how it's done in that family is maybe discussed as an agenda item in that conversation, right? And we're running, but I just wanted to mention that from my point of view, right, on the submission topic, I think number one, I completely agree with you. I have had to define it for myself as well, because I didn't relate to any of what I saw submission being positioned as. That's number one. And also secondly, like you, I was never sat down to be told, you must submit, and this is what submission is, and this is what it means on either side. I never had that. So I've had to define it for myself. And I think for me, personally, I understand and I believe that people should play to their advantages. But I think that in most cases, there will be decisions, or in some cases, rather, they may say, there's going to be decisions that need to be made that can't be done. Like, I'll say yes and you'll say no.
Yeah.
And for some, the family needs to move forward.
So how do you treat those then?
Yes, because then if we are equal majority shareholders,
then we'll be at a deadlock.
Yes. As a family.
Yes.
Because we are equals. Yes. Exactly so the same.
50-50 in the vote. In the essence of shareholding. So we can't proceed because there's no 51%.
There's no 51%,
yes.
Right? And for me, I feel like in that context, as a family, when decisions are to be made, and there's a 50-50, if I view myself and my husband as equal shareholders on everything, where the family is going, the cultures, what we follow, what we believe in, where we go to church and all of those things, we can't go to two different places.
Yeah.
And for those instances, yes, we play to each other's advantages, but I do see my husband as the leader.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I understood getting into the marriage, right? That I am getting married and he will be the head of the household in the way that I define it, which is a leader. So the way I think about it as well, I was actually thinking about it for this conversation. At work, I report into the head of strategy.
Yeah.
That's my reporting line.
Yeah.
We make decisions together. We build the goals for the business together. We both have input. But when the business is going forward and a decision needs to be made on what the business's future looks like, and him and I disagree, someone needs to say, as a family, this is the call, right? And that would be him, not me.
Can I add to that? So with us, everything comes to a conversation. It's only in instances where, say, one person is dying or is on their deathbed and a decision has to be made and there's no time to consult, then obviously by all means you'll make the decision that you think suits the family. And the nice thing about having people, the person that you're with decide, is because you know each other's core values. You know what you guys stand for and what you believe in as a unit. That even if they were to make the decision, it won't go against ubuwena, because he'll have that in mind.
Agreed.
I know my partner, I know what they like. So even if, say, like choosing a church, my partner knows that, okay, my wife likes worship. So in his decision of the church that we go to, he'll consider the fact that the worship team has to be good, because that I know that revives his spirit. So I don't know, man. It's the titles that I'm against, but the fundamentals are basically the same. Uma ushada nomuntu, ngeke ushade nomuntu ongamthembi.
Agreed.
And already if we're married and I trust you, there'll be instances where you will lead because I trust the direction that you're leading us to. It's the topic, it's the definitions that I'm running away from and that I'm more against. But I definitely agree with that. But it's not a thing of now he'll decide to go to Sondapi alone. No, it's a conversation that we had. I think we should go to this church because it's closer, because it meets both of our needs, not because we used to go to Itekaya and that's it. Then that's where I think starts being blurry.
I think then you're going to dictatorship.
Yes.
Right? And I feel like leadership is not necessarily dictatorship.
And also a leader doesn't lead in isolation.
Yes.
A leader, as much as you, the strategy manager, like we're saying it, will make the final decision. Obviously, that I don't even want to use as an analogy because some leaders won't even come to consult you and ask you what do you think or where should we take it. So that becomes tricky. But in that partnership of being with someone that you love, that you trust, and you guys have these conversations, you have a shared vision, then you know what direction you to.
Yeah.
So even if you were to let that person decide everything, it's just that I don't know, man. I like being in control.
I can tell.
I like being in control.
Tell.
So I just can't. This term, yangulala, but you know, so it's tricky, man.
And you know what?
And again, it's the boxes.
And I feel like you are the perfect person to have this conversation with, because I also believe that submission or not, or whatever it is, I think because there's so many definitions, there's also a strong no, I won't do it, no, because it means that and it means this. And that's why I'm glad that you're coming from another point of view. But my thing is that there are only you should be compromising. Let me not say everybody compromises in their marriage. You should be compromising in your marriage. A marriage is a partnership.
Yeah.
But not all decisions can be made on joint.
And
right?
even what that term compromise, it also can have a bad connotation.
Yes, it can.
That's why
sometimes you feel like you're sacrificing.
Yes, that's why sometimes you have to define things for yourself. And even if it doesn't fit into any box that exists out there, as long as it works for the two of you. Because the thing with the box is that you're succumbing to someone else's definition, and which you might not agree with 100%. Do you get me? I agree with the biblical term of submission. Let me put it out there. I'm owning it now. I agree with it, right? But my pastors that I've watched who interpreted very differently to how it's being put out there in the world. Same. And that's why I now can't own it in public, because the reference you have of it will be very different to my reference of it. And then I don't want to skew the conversation. Do you get me? Because again, in my research of this topic, so many of the videos I'd watch and be like, you see why I wanted to talk about this. And Miss Jill, I'm like, I can't now say I agree, because when you so very white, and I'm not gonna agree to anything of 100%, you know? So that's why I'm so against the term. This is exactly, guys, this is exactly why I wanted to talk about this. Yeah. Because and I'm speaking for myself in my own opinion, I believe in the biblical understanding of submission, which in its own can be interpreted, right? But the way it was taught to me, I believe in it. But now what I'm watching and the videos I'm seeing are making me feel like that's not me. Can I tell you something? And now I'm like, Auntie, what is this thing? What is this thing? Because what I'm hearing is a no, but what I was taught from a biblical growing up perspective, I could understand why that is the case, and that's why I believe in that, and that's why I wanted us to have this conversation. And we're gonna go into roles now. Yeah. Like, what is this thing? Is it something you believe in? Do you not? If you don't, why? Because again, there are certain decisions in a household that will have to be made. Yeah. Right? Where a leader will have to lead. Yeah. Yes, I can drive. He can drive. Yes, I can cook. He can cook, and all of these things. But something will have to be done. And like you said, you made a perfect example. We can't be both behind the steering, and maybe on that day we both want to drive, and we both going to. It's not possible. Like almost when you start making it practical, we can't both drive. Yeah, one person has to drive. It's not possible. Who's gonna drive and why? Right? You know?
Yeah.
And if you're gonna both go into your own cars and drive, send Moshu petrol because you're going to the same place. If you bring it home, then like it becomes more practical. One thing I want to say though, a definition that I absolutely loved and I can ascribe to, right? This pastor was like, the way that he knows and understands submission is that uNkulunkulu trusted the man with the household. And he then leads the household, right? But he has to be accountable to God.
Correct.
And if God comes back and he says, I need an account, I need a report on this household, who has to give that account? It's the man. And if this household is going into destruction, he has to account for that. Konakala izinto nje under your leadership, when I use your term, right? Because like it's like the CEO of a company. As much as I want to use the analogy of a CEO, because company cultures are horrible out there.
And it's not the same, guys, but we're just trying to make it,
just to bring it home.
Yes,
to bring it home. So if you now have to account to Yonagala la, nguwe in charge of the direction that this family takes. Woneni. Right? You have to now answer to it. But now also on a positive note, this man is given the authority to lead this household. He then decides how he wants to lead the household. And maybe that's where I need to make a differentiation.
Okay.
My husband doesn't lead with that dictatorship. He leads in partnership. We literally do things together.
He leads, but he leads in partnership.
So that's why I'm saying I believe in the biblical aspect, and that's why I want to clearly define my own definition, which is inspired by what this pastor say, but also inspired by our lives. In our family, guys, if I don't like something that my husband is doing, it might never be in the moment. It might not be in the moment, but we sit down and we discuss it. That actually, I don't like ABC, and he won't come to me and be like, "Oh, Lindo, he's not that kind of a person," right? He'll be like, "Okay, let's unpack it. What exactly don't you like about it?" That's the kind of leadership style that he has. I guess maybe that's why some terms may not seem fitting, because senza so isn't so too. I wish that you're a human being walking around with two heads. That's not a thing. But in his leadership style, if I were to own the leadership thing, his leadership style is that we lead together. And again, like the analogy of a car, there will be someone who drives at certain points of the journey. It won't be both of us at the same time, unless we're going into two different places. That's the best way I can put it. And I also don't wanna over spiritualize it. I don't want to over complicate it, but in the most layman's term, the car example. The car is the family. At any given time, for whatever various reasons around it that time. And imoto, the best, like the vision is to get us to a certain place, and that's what the person driving has in mind as well. They won't just crash the car into the tree, no. Because we both want to get there alive. We want the benefit of this place. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's actually so triggering, this topic. I think, and also again, it's triggering because of the definitions that are out there. So yeah.
I agree. I think it's triggering because of that. And again, which is why it's so important to have conversations around these things. Because I was curious when I watched those videos that you watched and I read things, I also asked myself, let me have a conversation with someone else and find out, is my definition like completely different? Is there a different perspective? And most importantly, where are people coming from with their perspectives? So if you are bashing it, why? If you're not, why?
Yes.
And again, like definitions are tricky, but you can't speak without words. True. Right? You have to put a word to it to try and express what you're trying to say. It might not be the best word. Even with my example, like the corporate example might not be the best example, but you have to use words.
You have to use
somehow. Yes. With using certain examples. On that note, so obviously I mentioned in the beginning that the kind of marriages that our grandmothers had and where we are now and we find ourselves is different. From a household perspective, in your household with your husband, do you share roles equally? Like, do you share roles like 50%. What I mean by that is, maybe let me be simple. Do you cook on Mondays and he cooks on Tuesdays? No. Do you cook on Wednesdays? Like, when it comes to domestic functions specifically, do you split those equally, or?
No, we don't. We don't split them equally, purely because my husband doesn't like to cook. So he's not going to cook Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He just doesn't like to do it. I'm not a chef, but I do enjoy home cooked food from time to time, to get me. So it's not like the option would be to order in every day, no. So those roles are not split equally. But also, we have someone who helps us in the household. So I don't like cleaning. We have someone who helps us with cleaning, to get me. So no, the roles are not split equally.
Okay. The situation is similar in the sense that my husband does not enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
If it was up to him, he would just not go to the kitchen at all. And I don't mind it, right? And I don't mind it. And because of that, it leads up to everything else, like the groceries, because I have to cook. And because I'm cooking, I know what's needed. And then
it doesn't mean just because you're cooking, you're a submissive one.
Yes.
Guys, we skew things, man. Yo, we skew things, man.
Which is where I was going with the roles.
Can I just tell you that? My husband is vendor. So vendor people like doing this thing they call chibodo. Okay. So he'll cook like tripe or cow trotters or whatever by the fire outside. He loves that. Okay. And I think today he's actually doing that. And he loves that, so he'll do it. So now, because he's a submissive husband, no, hey, these titles.
If they catch him by the pods, it's over.
Like, the titles are hectic.
Yeah, now she was busy doing YouTube videos with friends, and now he was caught next to a pod.
Can you imagine?
Guys, like, I feel like sometimes, I don't know if it's, I don't know, like a misunderstood type of feminism, or what is bringing this thing. But then if I work 9 to 5, you work 9 to 5. You must cook on Mondays, and I must cook on Tuesdays, and you must cook. And it's so, because for me and my household, firstly, I think, and a very important point in all these questions is choose the right partner.
Yes.
Because I feel like the conversation and how it goes could go way different
with a different kind of partner.
Sure. So we can sit here and say
that. Sure.
We can sit here and say, today he's cooking, or he doesn't mind when I don't cook. But it's a different situation if you're in a different partnership and your spouse.
Powerful.
It's just like.
Can I also say, it also takes a man who is secure in his manhood. Right? My husband's manhood, based on how I've come to know him and the kind of relationship we have, is not defined by the terms and the,
and whether he's by the stove or not, or he takes his tray to the kitchen or not.
All of those things don't take away from the role that he plays in our household and in my life. Do you get me? Like, I understand fully the value that my husband brings to the table. Do you get me? Yeah. And because he's so comfortable and sure in that value himself, him going to cook today, or me sending him to buy groceries, or whatever it could be that this gender roles, society definitions type sometimes speak to, are not a thing. Because he knows I'm a man, and I know the value I bring to the table.
As a man.
I know as a man, as a husband, as a partner, as a father, whatever. And no definition out there could ever make him feel insecure about that. Because he is comfortable in his manhood. And therefore, being the talkative person that I am, and the bold woman that I am, and the challenging stereotypes type of person, it doesn't even faze him. Because he's comfortable and what he is, and who he is to me.
Speaking of this, because you're mentioning it like the second or third time, that you do have a bold personality, right? You do speak boldly and loudly. When myself and my husband are in the same environment, I always joke with him, and I'm like, I'm so, from a society point of view, they probably think I bully you. Or something, because he's not that person. I'm the bold one. I'm the loud one. But it's just a personality thing. Exactly. It says nothing about what we're building or what we have in our marriage. And what I love about him is it does not faze him in the least. I'll make a simple example. Like, my husband is not a talker. So if we're going to a specific place, he will be like, khuluma, like say something, and I'll take the mic and I'll speak on behalf of us.
Yeah.
He doesn't mind that. He doesn't have that. This is the Mojapelo household, therefore the person who will speak is me. But I think that when you on society terms, the one who should speak first and the one who should be bolder is that. And I think we do morph gender and everything. We put it all in the same thing, and then say, here is what it is.
And also, just to touch on that, just because we are loud and have big personalities doesn't mean it's something you wake up and choose. It's not a hat you wake up and choose to wear. You just happen to have a thick voice. By virtue of being in a conversation, your voice will be louder just because it's thick. In terms of even now, biology, I have a large voice. Do you get me?
Yeah.
And then also I'm a bubbly, loving person. Therefore, I have a big personality. But also, just because you're speaking louder doesn't mean the person that is speaking softer isn't saying something just as valuable or even more.
I love
so
that
we sometimes like to define things. Just because I speak louder, I will show you doesn't mean I'm saying the most valuable thing. No, doesn't. And also, just because the other one is saying it in a subtle, different manner to the way I would be delivering it, doesn't mean he's saying something any less valuable or even not more valuable, So this thing or this need to always just put things into boxes is just so draining, because it just makes things so tricky. Like nothing can ever be what it is, because now it has to be defined and it has
according to X, Y, and Z, or else it's something else.
It's heavy, hey? Yo.
I can feel it. It's here. Okay, cool. So let's move on to in-laws.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask this very simply, like, Lindo that I'm with now, that I'm talking to in this conversation.
Yes.
I'm going to shriek N1 and head that side in the context of your in-laws. Is it the same,
100%,
Lindo, or is there a vendor makoti version?
No, girl, this is me
that you put in your back pocket.
This is Lindo, and I think it's so important to understand that. And I think this is something I prayed about going into my marriage. I hoped, and you can only hope, that people take the time to get to know you.
Yeah.
Because if you take the time to get to know someone, then you know who they are and you get where their intentions lie. And then in scenarios, you have a better understanding. Uguti, I might be all chatty like this. It's not because it's because this is just how I am, and it has nothing to do with my respect for you or my role in this household or whatever, right? So if you come to a vendor in our home, you'll find this exact Lindo. And obviously there's a time and place for everything.
Yes. We're not talking about those minor.
There's a time and place for everything. There's a time to be loud, there's a time to be quiet. There's a time to be jolly, there's a time to be somber, you get me? But if you know who I am and you understand where I'm coming from and my guiding principles as Umuntu, then you know the intention behind the personality. And at no point will you ever feel intimidated or taken aback, because you know, Guti, this is who I am, she doesn't mean any harm. Again, with people that are outside of the close-knit family, there can be those misunderstandings. And I think in those scenarios...
From the outside looking in.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So in those scenarios where you don't have the context of who I am, I won't be... Because I don't want to leave room to be misunderstood. So I'll approach you on your level. If you're calm, I'll be calm with you. If you're quiet, I'll be quiet. Because asazani. And I don't want to leave a bad taste in your mouth thinking, she's so loud, I feel disrespected or whatever that it could be. So I'll come to the level that you're on. And only when we've established that understanding of who I am, can I bring my full self, because I know that you know where that comes from.
Sure, good conversation. So, in the context of marriage, before I got married, guys, if there's one thing I heard, it's that kunzima emtshadweni, kunzima emtshadweni, hey, ungabocimba, hey. And I was sitting there thinking, I know I love this person and I trust him, but hey, ngathi something enzakala, there's a fire being lit and all of these things, Like life has its challenges. Married, not married, there's different challenges, obviously, but it almost seemed like the day I say I do, I must.
Exactly. So lift up your. You've going into work.
Do you think, and from what I heard, it from what I heard, it almost seemed like kunzima, especially for the female. I heard a lot about, like, maybe it's that nyamezela thing, like nyamezela, like whatever happens, just, it made me feel like, the things I'm gonna face in there, you know. And I'm fortunate for my parents, the ones that raised me, they gave me a positive view
Sure.
because I watched their marriage. I love how they still hold hands. I love how they still love each other openly. So I had that, but society was like, hey.
And then you're like, but it's not the same one I'm seeing there.
It's not what I'm
in the
seeing
house.
there. But especially from a female perspective, it's almost like unzima for the female. Like it's tough for us. As if this thing of like every day, all the time. Do you think it's tougher for females in a marriage than males?
I think umshado unzima, and I think obviously, and I don't want to make light of that statement. The kind of marriages we are in now are very different to the kind of marriages that other people are in. So you can only speak about your experiences.
Correct.
I can't disqualify that statement.
Correct.
Because angazi the kind of circumstances that other people have been in that lead them to saying that. But unzima in the context of bringing two people together from totally different backgrounds and putting them in one room and expecting them to live in harmony. To get to that point of harmony, a lot of groundwork has to be done. And that's the hardship now. That's the tough part. In the sense that you guys are going to have to die to self. You know, there's things you're going to have to let go of. You've lived all your life. You're just independent woman. You do these things in a certain way. And now when you come together with someone, you have to do things in a way that benefits the unit.
Yeah.
And that also means sometimes letting go of certain things that maybe you would have, like certain ways of doing things, you know. Like maybe that's where the hardship comes in. And then with being tougher maybe for the female, I think maybe it can be perceived in that way because the female is more expressive. The female is more expressive. The female's most instances are more emotional. So it's deemed as though it's harder for the female because they are vocal about the hardships they experience. Our partners probably have their own hardships, but because of our kulumi, we will never know about them.
In their genuine nature.
Yes, in the genuine nature of, I think men are not as talkative as women, you know, or expressive. Let me say talkative because talkative is expressive rather. So if something is hurting you, who's most likely to be like, yo baby, I didn't like what you did?
Yeah.
It's most of the times the female. So we know of the female struggles because they are vocal about them, whereas the male isn't as vocal about their struggles. So we don't know them. So we could never quantify them and try to put them on a similar scale.
And say one is worse than the other.
One is worse than that because we don't know what they go through, you know. And also, again, the kind of marriages we have now, it could easily be said that we have it easy, you know. So there's certain experiences that we probably might never have that qualified that statement. So you can never disqualify it, but at the same time, from my experience, it's just because I'm more emotional, it will be hard for me because I'll voice out everything, and also everything is from an emotional point of view. When I'm hurt or when you step on me, it's emotional. Do you get me? So in that instance, it could be because the women is more vocal, not so much because their hard is harder.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And I'm not gonna add much to that because I'm also of the same thought. But I just wanted to amplify the male part. I listened to someone at some point, you know, talking about how they are looking for a job and they're really desperate for a job, and you know, he was just so vocal about the fact that, you know, he needs to look after his wife.
Yeah.
I need to look after my wife. It's about my wife. And, you know, and I for a second thought to myself that, you know, we never really think about, and I'm speaking to the men who want to provide and who actively every day try to push. We don't understand what they go through, you know, trying to do that. And to hear a man express themselves in that way, I thought, and I spoke to my husband about it, and I'm like, I've never thought about it that way. It's like, dude, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like every waking day of my life,
Yeah.
I am thinking that I need to be more successful. I need to make more. I need to do more for you.
Yes.
And for my family in future.
I totally
And
agree.
I've never held that on my shoulders.
And it's heavy
every
on
day.
them.
I've
It's
never
heavy.
thought about it that way.
We've had a similar conversation with my husband, and something he even said was,
I've
like,
never.
yo, it's deep.
It's
Mos.
deep.
He was like, ngakusukela ngazokulanda kini. I have to make sure. Do you get me? I was like, yo, I never would have thought of it like that.
Same.
And you can never quantify the level of heaviness that can carry
every day
on someone,
every
you know.
day.
So if you have a rough day, or if things don't go according to your way, or let's say you work with targets and you don't reach your targets for the day, obviously those thoughts start coming in. Oh my gosh, I didn't reach my targets for the day, I didn't provide enough, or do you get me? It's a whole other thing we're not even privy to. So you can never weigh them and
sure.
try to put them on an equal
I really
scale.
just took that home and I had that conversation. I'm like, to be honest, thank you.
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you. You know, because because that's not something I see every day, and you
they
don't talk
vocalize
about it.
Yes.
You don't talk about it. I've never been like, no. And then he said to me, even when we go home to Limpopo, have you noticed how like I'll peek at the door when you're in the kitchen, like, Ushab? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And then I'll go on. It's like, that's me checking if you're okay, because
I didn't bring you here to have you be heartbroken.
That's exactly what he said.
Sure.
Like, I will come. Yes, I'll be busy, and he does have that habit. Like, he'll come once in a while and obviously he used to do it more often when I first started coming. Now it's less because I'm getting used to it.
Yeah.
He's like, that's me checking, because I can't take you all the way from the other side of the coast, bring you all the way here for you to be disrespected or ill-treated or whatever it is that happens.
Sure.
So I don't think we understand that, like you said, because they don't vocalize, we don't understand how deep.
In fact, even
that is.
Those conversations are just a scratch of the surface. Asas. And it speaks so much to, obviously, different topic altogether, but the mental health issues that we're experiencing as a society at the moment, it's because we just don't know what people are going through.
I have no idea. No idea, at least not beyond the surface. Thank you for an amazing conversation. I really, really enjoyed this. Last question. So, has marriage been everything that you thought it would be?
Sure. Good question. To be very honest with you, I never had an idea of what marriage would be like. Again, as I referenced earlier, I was never exposed to any married people growing up. I grew up in a single parent household, so I didn't have a marriage that I could look up to or learn from, you know. So me going into my own marriage was basically the school. I walked into my own marriage and those are the lessons that I'm learning live. Obviously, you'll hear about people's experiences and you'll read books here and there, but that's nothing compared to seeing it firsthand and also experiencing it firsthand. So to be very honest, I never had expectations coming into it. It was all just like rolling with the motions and taking it for what it is and as it comes. So, yeah.
Cool. I think for me, I obviously, like whenever I go into anything, I'll do all this research, ask questions, watch videos, do YouTube videos. Yes, I'll do my due diligence, thank you. And that's what I did. But I think the one part that took me by surprise was the emotional aspect. I really think one can't fully describe or fathom how deep this decision is until you are actually in it. It's deep, like committing yourself and your life and everything you have to someone else and basically placing it there and saying, bring yours, I'll bring mine, let's do this together. It's quite an emotional decision. And I think after that day, it sunk in. And every day, man, when I think about how deep this thing is that we're trying to do, and I'm sure as you have children and progress forward, it gets even deeper. So I think the emotional aspect definitely took me by surprise. I think it's quite deep. And other stuff you learn as you go. I think it is an adventure, like you said. And I think also having a blank page is the best way to do it, because then your expectations are not all over the place and you're not left disappointed. Lindo and I could go on and on as you can tell the whole day. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, please, her link will be in the description box. Go and subscribe to her channel. You will not regret it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and do consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't, so I can see you in the other videos. Bye!